Hey, welcome to the channel. This is Perfect Vocals Academy, and I had a request for this video, and I'm not sure why I've never done it, but it was a great request, and it's how to EQ and process an SM7B. So this is one of the most popular mics on the market, obviously, especially for home recording. It is so good at rejecting noises, other noises in the room, whether it be your furnace or an AC unit. Whatever is in front of this mic is what you hear, and that's why this mic is just so powerful. So I wanted to bring up the frequency chart first. It's important to know with a mic what this diagram looks like, because it's going to let us know what the mic is already doing to the signal. So as you can see, first thing I can notice is these big notches around 7 and I don't know, almost 9K, and then one up above 9K. So a lot from 6K all the way to, who knows, 11, 12, doesn't really specify exactly, just somewhere in here. But right off the bat, you can kind of see that it is going to be a darker microphone. I will note right now that I believe SM7Bs are the best for a louder type of vocalist. So the example I'm showing in this video is a more projected sound that's pretty loud or on the loud side. Doesn't have to be super loud, but I've noticed that softer singers don't quite match up with this mic too well. And a lot of that is because it's a very full mic. It sounds very full, and when you're kind of louder or shouting or just singing or belting out, a lot of the low end goes away in a vocal. So a mic like this is going to kind of beef that up and make it like nice and thick sounding. But if you're a really soft singer, that low end that's there with the mic kind of ends up being muddy. It ends up being too thick for the mix and just too much. So just note that when you're singing softer, you're going to have to cut a lot more. You're going to have to roll off, cut some of the lows, cut some of the low mids, and really get it sitting right. It takes a little bit of work for sure. We're going to start off with an EQ here, obviously. And I've noticed that these areas around 150, around 1K or so, those two have benefited with some sort of cut just to kind of even it out. Let's hear with and without that.
Through trials and tribulations I stand tall. In his name I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy and love will tear down the wall.
Huge difference. This is this boost as well. I forgot to go over that. That's a boost at 10K. And I chose 10K because when you look at this, it just looked like a lot of this. It's below 10K, but when you boost 10K, it's also, especially when you're boosting wide, it's also covering some of this area around 8 and 9 as well. So I boosted around 10K and it really came to life. So boost, cut. And then we rolled off about 45, nothing crazy. There's really nothing even down there. That's a huge start. It's going to be EQing like this. Don't be afraid to cut with a wide cut as long as you're not going more than a couple dB or so. If you go much more than a couple dB, it's going to start to sound really unnatural for a wide Q cut. Next, we are going to knock down some of these peaks with a nice aggressive 1176. This compressor really matches well with the SM7. So all these attacks are pretty fast, but I usually like to start just straight up and then go a little quicker with the release.
Through trials and tribulations I stand tall. In his name I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy and love will tear down the wall. Through trials and tribulations I stand tall. In his name I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy and love will tear down the wall. Through trials and tribulations I stand tall. In his name I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy and love will tear down the wall. Through trials and tribulations I stand tall. In his name I'll never.
As you can see, I'm kind of aggressive with the gain reduction. 5 to 7 dB a gain reduction. I think it sounds good for this vocal or this style. I think that this mic benefits from a good amount of compression, and we're going to be doing some more compression later. That's why I don't do it all with one plugin, obviously. Next, we're getting onto a multi-band compressor. I'm going to start off with this section right here. I found from around 100 to 1K can all use some separate compression.
Through trials and tribulations I stand tall. In his name I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy and love will tear down the wall. Trials and tribulations I stand tall. In his name I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy and love will tear down the.
Yeah, that tightened it up tremendously.
Through trials and tribulations I stand tall. In his name I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call.
The vocal's not quite in the pocket enough.
Through trials and tribulations, I stand tall. In his name, I'll never fall. He's
And then you can turn up the output at the end here to get it to match.
Trials and tribulations, I stand tall. In his name, I'll never
That's before.
He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy and love will tear down
Way clearer. So that's really clean now. Like, that's a huge step in the chain. So let's hear before those 3 plugins.
Through trials and tribulations, I stand tall. In his name, I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand.
Very muddy, just kind of clustered. Can't hear the lyrics too well.
Through trials and tribulations, I stand tall. In his name, I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy and love will tear down the wall.
Yes, so that's definitely what you want. I've noticed this mic is not too bad with the sibilants because, once again, when we look at this, it's doing these cuts around 7, around 9. It does have this bump at around 5, so there could be some sibilance that lives there. So let's listen for that. Didn't sound bad. It varies from vocalist to vocalist. Some vocalists really pronounce their S's a lot, and then others are more light with it. If you're light with it, then the SM7 is going to just probably not even need a de-esser.
Through trials and tribulations, I stand tall. In his name, I'll never fall. He's the rock on which...
Maybe subtle. We can grab a de-esser. We're going to put the frequency at around 5K because of the bump on the mic's diagram. And let's just bring the threshold all the way off.
Through trials and tribulations, I stand tall. In his name, I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy and love will tear down the wall. Through trials and tribulations, I stand tall. In his name, I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy.
Very light with it. I think it helps it, but go with a very moderate setting with just a little bit of reduction here. That's all it really needed. You might need more if it's a soft vocal. Keep that in mind. A loud vocal doesn't usually need a de-esser as much because of just the way the loud vocal compares to the sibilants. If the loud vocal is really loud, the sibilants doesn't really seem that loud. Whereas if you're a really quiet singer, the sibilants might be just as loud as you are. Let's get out some effects. I think, as far as effects goes, as long as you mix the vocal right, you don't have to do anything special for the SM7B, but we're going to get out some effects, bring this mix down. This is Space Rider. This just came out.
Through trials and tribulations, I stand tall. In his name, I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy and love will tear down the wall. Through trials and tribulations, I stand tall. In his name, I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy and love will tear down the wall. Through trials and tribulations, I stand tall. In his name, I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy and love will tear down the wall.
Yeah, something like Space or Plate.
Through trials and tribulations, I stand tall. In his name, I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy and love.
Yeah, the Plate works pretty nice. Space. Both these reverbs are very lush sounding, and I definitely recommend them because I was getting a little bored with the reverb plugins I've been using until this came out. It has a nice filter on it, even though it says 8K. It doesn't sound like there's much high end going on in the reverb, but I actually like that. It just puts the reverb way back and makes it super lush sounding. You can also play around with some harmonic exciter, like a Fresh Air, to just bring back some of that high end that wasn't quite there because it's such a dark mic.
Through trials and tribulations, I stand tall. In his name, I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy and love will tear down the wall. Through trials and tribulations, I stand tall. In his name, I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy and love will tear down the wall. Through trials and tribulations, I stand tall. In his name, I'll never
That's without it.
fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy and love will tear down the wall.
It just adds like a little sparkle, a little bit of bite to it. Let's see about the mid-range.
Through trials and tribulations, I stand tall. In his name, I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy and love will tear down the wall. Through trials and tribulations, I stand tall. In his name, I'll never fall. He's the rock on which I stand at my call. Mercy and love will tear down the wall.
Way cleaner now, and it's the vocal sounded really good before this plugin, but then once you put it on and you go back, it's kind of like it didn't sound that good before. It's just how my ears heard it at the moment. So sometimes this exciter or a different exciter, but I happen to like this exciter, this plugin will just show you something you didn't even know you needed. I didn't know I needed that extra sparkle or extra bite in the mid-range, but once you put it on there, it's there, it sounds good, and you don't want to take it off. So you can also use this as a aux send as well and use it in parallel if you don't want to put it directly on. I've gotten good results from that, only because fresh air can be a little harsh on some vocals. Some vocals it sounds better a little more. This is actually more than I do on most vocals. A lot of vocals can only take maybe 5 to 10% of each one of these, and it sounds like it's enough. So it's a very strong plugin, so using it in parallel can actually be pretty cool as well. All right, guys, if you liked Space Rider or 1176, De-esser, or the C4, hit the link in the description. Shop at Waves Audio. It supports the channel. And then also I highly recommend Claro. You can also find this at the link in the description, clicking on Plugin Boutique link. Share this video, tell your friends, and I think there's a lot of people at home recording right now that can use the info in this video to help their vocal mixes shine through. I'll see you guys next week.